Today I'm going to be sharing with you the ranking for my minimal eyeshadow collection. I only have 7 eyeshadow palettes. Now for some of you that may be a lot, and for others that may not be that many, but for myself personally I feel like 7 is a nice curated number. I would like to add one more palette into my collection this year, but I am waiting to hit pan on a shade. My rule is I don't bring in any new palettes until I hit pan on a shade. So I have 7 palettes. I'm going to be ranking them from like least used to maybe most used, or like maybe my least favorite to my most favorite. If I did not enjoy the formula, if I didn't like the palette, I wouldn't have it. All the palettes I have in my collection, I absolutely love. I'm more so ranking them from like the palettes that I would use every day or bring with me on a trip to the palettes that maybe don't get as much love and attention. So I'm going to be ranking them from like my least favorite to my most favorite, most used. This palette is currently in my project pan, and it is the Jaclyn and Morphe palette, the original one. This one is not the reformulated one, and it is not the newest one. This is the original one. The reason why this one is the least favorite or used palette for myself is the size, and that's what I was struggling with today. I don't like to keep a lot of things out on my vanity, and I just feel like if I keep this out on my vanity, it's taking up so much space. And when I put it in my drawers, and my drawers are pretty big, like they can fit quite a bit, I can't have it sitting up. I have to have it lying flat, and the only way that it works is if it's at the bottom of my drawer and everything else goes on top. And today it was on the top and it got jammed in my drawer. And I was just like, this is why I don't buy big palettes. This is why I don't like bulky palettes. So anyway, the first reason is because of the size. The second reason is because it doesn't have a mirror, which it's not a make or break if a palette has a mirror or not. I'm just sharing with you why this one is at the bottom. So it's because of the size. It's because it has no mirror. The shade names are not like anywhere where you can like visibly see them. You have to like turn it around and look in the back. I mean, you could print off the paper and tape it on the top, but you know, the other reason why is because when you look at these shades, so many of these shades, so many are very, very, very repetitive. I honestly feel like this could have been like a 30 pan palette, or if she wanted to do like 35, do different color shades, because so many of these are so similar on the eyes. And lastly is because the formulas are not the same in here. I'm currently working on the shade right here in my pan, those shadows, and it is so dry and so chalky. And some of these shades in here are so nice, but other shades, they're so hard to work with, and they're very, very patchy and dry and chalky. So this one I do like, because when I open it, there's a really nice variety of colors. I mean, you could do a basic look, you can do a smoky eye, you can do a colorful look, fall, winter, like you can do everything with it. But I just feel like it could have been condensed a little bit more, and that is why it's at the bottom for myself personally. If it was not in my project pan, I would not have reached for it this year. Like very rarely. I probably would have reached for it like a handful of times if it wasn't in my project pan. So for number 6, it's going to be the It's My Pleasure from Colourpop. I am working on this in my pan, those shadows, and I'm currently trying to hit pan on the shade Bare Minimum. I love this palette. I enjoy this palette a lot. I think this is a great palette. You get a lot of product in the Colourpop shadows, and they're very, very affordable. They work very, very well. They blend out very, very well. The shimmers are nice. I honestly don't have anything bad to say about anything of this. The only reason why it's a little bit lower than I thought it was going to be is because this is more of like a purple and pink palette, where day to day I'm not reaching for like purple and pink unless I specifically want that color. And I also think like if I was taking this to work, if I was taking this to the gym, if I was taking this on a trip, I more than likely wouldn't just take this palette because it doesn't have like any other like neutral shades. Like this one can be neutral, but it doesn't have enough neutral shades in it for myself to bring it, and I just feel like I wouldn't gravitate towards these shades enough if I were to bring this palette. So literally the only reason why it is number 6 is because of the color story. There's nothing wrong with the formula, nothing wrong with the pigmentation, blending, nothing. I love how these have a mirror. Packaging is nice, great size, easy to travel with. It's honestly just because of the color story. So I did have a hard time deciding on if this next palette should be in the 5th spot or in the 6th spot, but I did decide to put it above the It's My Pleasure palette, and it is the Too Faced Hot Buttered Rum palette. I love the size of this palette. I love how it's in like a tin. The packaging of this is really, really nice. I love the quality of the packaging. I love how you have a mirror, and not just that, it's so easy just to travel with. It is so easy to throw in your purse. The only thing that I personally find about this palette that ranked it pretty low for myself is this brown shade here is a little bit patchy, and I feel like the only way I can really make it work is if I really build it up like a lot. But then at that point, it's like a really, really dark brown. That is the first reason, because this shade is a little bit patchy. It did rank a little bit lower, and because I'm not the biggest fan of like gold or yellow type of tones, so I don't always reach for these specific tones like all the time. I did hit pan on this shade right here, and I absolutely love this shade. You honestly get a lot of product for the amount. Like, I use this shade well over 100 times in a project pan. Like, I worked on this shade for months prior to my project pan. I'd want to say I honestly got about 200 uses out of this shade right here, and I would use it as blush. I would use it kind of like as a all over setting powder. I would use it as like an eyeshadow. I used it constantly. So you are getting like a really good value for these shades. The other thing about this though is I just don't always want a fragrance in my eyeshadow. That's the only thing. And I also feel like this one here, it's not gingerbread, but it does have like a little bit of a spice scent to it. So it's not like sweet, it's kind of strong. So anyway, there's just these little things about this palette that it's like, I like the palette because I love the size, and I love how I'm able to like take it with me and create looks everywhere, and it is very beautiful, but there's just a little flaw here and there that I just think it does need to be ranked a little bit lower. So I was gonna put it in the 6th spot, but in reality, if I was going somewhere, or if I only had the 2 palettes to do my makeup in a day, I would more than likely choose this one, and I have. So I typically choose this one over the Colourpop one solely because of the color story. In the 4th spot is the Colourpop Going Coconuts, and you can see where my color preferences are going with this. So if you have the Going Coconuts, or you've seen the Colourpop Going Coconuts, you know that it is a very, very neutral palette, and this is a palette that I always love, and I always think, why don't I reach for it more? And I love the looks that I create when I reach for it. Again, I like the packaging. I love how it comes with a mirror. It's a nice size. The formula is really, really good. I always get great looks when I use this, and that's why it is in my top 4. I feel like my top 4 were very hard for me to decide which one should be at the top, where my bottom 3 were kind of no-brainer and easy ones. Like, I'll be honest with you, if I had to do a declutter like right now for whatever reason, or if I lost any of the palettes, I would be okay with losing the Jaclyn Hill, the It's My Pleasure, and the Too Faced Hot Buttered Rum palette, but I would not be okay with losing this one or my other one. So this one is great. It's a beautiful neutral palette. I love how you get a variety of mattes, some shimmers in here. There are different neutral tones. Really, really love it. I am currently working on the shade Nutty right here. It is a usage goal, which, spoiler alert, I will probably be rolling it out at the end of August because I have already used it 5 times and my goal was to use it 7. I'm actually using it today as a like bottom lash line eyeshadow. So I really love this palette. I do want to reach for it a lot more. I don't know why I don't reach for it more. I'm happy that this is in my project pan because it has allowed me to reach for it more and create so many beautiful looks with this palette. In the 3rd spot is my Tati Beauty palette. I love this palette. I still love it. I still enjoy it. I like the size. I know it is a similar size to the Jaclyn Hill one. However, There is a difference between this one and the Jaclyn Hill one, like in quality, obviously, of the shadows. I also like how this one has a mirror, so I can bring it with me places because it does have a mirror and you can fold it so easy and just do your makeup very, very easy. So how this palette here was designed was so that you would have your shade, so let's say the orange one, and you would have it in matte, sequin, metallic, and glitter. So what I like is there's not really a repetition in the shade. Like obviously if you were to take maybe this one here and really, really blend it out, the sparkles may go, but I just like how it's very easy. You look at it, you know what you can get, and I do find this to be like a nice kind of neutral palette. And I also like how I can use it for nighttime, for daytime, for different seasons. It's a neutral palette, but it's not boring. That's what I like about it. It's not like, okay, here's your browns, that's your neutral palette. That's also why I like it a little bit better than the Going Coconuts, because the Going Coconuts is so neutral, where at least with this one you do have a little bit of playroom with what type of colors you would like. And I just absolutely love these. Every single time I open up this palette, I always want to use this orange here. I would love to do like a fall look using the orange, but this one is ranked in 3rd place. I need to use this palette more because of my Pan Those Shadows. I haven't actually used this palette. I was thinking about switching up my Pan Those Shadows for next year, where maybe I can work on like one palette each month. This way all of my palettes I can have like usage in. So I really do need to pull this palette out more and use it more, but it is ranked in the 3rd spot. This is a palette where I always feel very creative when I pull it out. I'm very, very happy to have it in my collection, and this is not one that will be leaving anytime soon. Now, in 2nd place and in 1st place, I had an extremely difficult time to decide which one should go where. And if you've watched my channel, you're probably going to know these 2 palettes and you may understand why. I'm having such a hard time. Like, they're basically tied. I was trying to tell myself, okay, if you were to do your makeup this morning and had both the palettes out, which one would you go for? And it was like both of them. And I was like, okay, if I was gonna like bring a palette to the gym and do my makeup at the gym, what palette would I reach for? And it was like both of them. And I thought, okay, if I was going on a trip, which palette would I bring with me? Both of them. So honestly, what I decided to do was just go by the one that I used a little bit less this year, and then the one that I used the most this year is at the top. So it was very, very hard for me, but in 2nd place is the e.l.f. Earthen Ocean palette. The other reason why this is in 2nd place was because if I was traveling with this, there is no mirror. And I know it sounds so silly, but that was the reason why it got in 2nd place, is because if I were to travel with it, I don't have a mirror. So anyway, I love this palette. Like, this palette for myself personally, I absolutely love. And if I were to lose this, break this, somehow declutter this, I would be going out and buying it again. Like, for sure. This is one of my newer palettes in my collection. I have used this so much. I use this along with my Pan Those Shadows. I use this many, many times and I love it. I love how you get a variety of blues. I love how you get a variety of browns. I love how you have like some golds and some greens, and I absolutely love this. And for myself personally, this is an everyday palette. This is a palette that I know I can create a look with and it'll look great. It'll go with any outfit that I have. It'll work with any other like palettes that I bring with me or have, and I love it. Like, I feel like all of the formulas in here are really, really good. The mattes are great. The shimmers are great. The glitters are good. I'm wearing the glitters today in my inner corners. The one thing that I do find with Tundra and Lagoon, so these two, is you may want to use a glitter glue if you're using them on your lid, because they can have a little bit of fallout. But it's glitter, so of course that's gonna happen. But anyway, I seriously love this palette. I have used every single shade in this palette, and I can't say that I've used every single shade from my other palettes. So that is how much I absolutely love this palette. I'm telling you, if you're looking to add blues, greens, browns, or golds into your collection, I would recommend this. Or if you're looking to try an e.l.f. palette, I would recommend this. If you're looking for an affordable palette, I would recommend this. Like, I can't recommend this enough. And if the blues are a little bit intimidating to you, you can blend them out to make them look a little bit more of like a gray or a purple. So I do like that option also, where if I blend them out enough, it can kind of look a little bit more like gray or purple, so it's not too blue. I love this palette. Like, I had such a hard time ranking it in second place because of how much I absolutely love it. And I also would not want to put this in a project pan because I don't want to hit pan on these shades because of how much I like them. Like, I don't know what else to say. I just absolutely love this palette so much. And I definitely want to try more of these types of palettes from e.l.f. because I have heard great things. But yes, this for me was so hard to place this in second. But the palette that I had to rate at the top for myself personally was the Urban Decay Naked Wild West. This is the newest palette in my collection, and I love it. I love the size because I can bring it with me anywhere. It's bulky, but it's sturdy, so I don't feel like it's gonna break easy at the same time. It also has a very beautiful mirror. You can pack a brush with it. So it hit all those check marks, and that is also why it's at the top. But the color story for this palette is an everyday color story for myself personally. There's some nice everyday shades, neutral shades. There's some purples in here, a little bit of blue. It's got everything that I need, and there's not really any repetitive shades. The gold shade in here, I am not the biggest fan of gold shades, but this was actually in my project pan for the shade Hold'em right here. I set a usage goal and I used it, and I loved it. I have never owned any Urban Decay palettes, Naked palettes, never. And as soon as I seen this palette, I was like, that is a palette I am gonna use. I'm gonna get a lot of usage out of it. I'm gonna love it. I could see myself like keeping it until all the pans are empty because I can see myself using every single shade, and that is why it's at the top. These two were so hard for me to decide which one could be at the top, but realistically this one does offer a little bit more than the Earthen Ocean, but these two are basically tied. Like, if you were to ask me what eyeshadow palette I would recommend getting, it would be one of these two. I mean, obviously depending what you need. If you want just a basic like everyday palette, get the Going Coconuts, but I would highly recommend these two. I absolutely love them so much. These two just make eyeshadow very easy. They make makeup very easy. They make it very fun, creative. They're just a great size, and I love them both so much. So that was that. That was my ranking of my minimal eyeshadow palette collection, and I am happy with how they all ranked. And like I said, it was very hard for myself to like pick the top one, but I do think the Wild West one does come at the top for myself personally. I can't wait to add a new eyeshadow palette in. I know Urban Decay is coming out with a new one. It's called like Cyber. That one has my eye, but also I think it's the Patrick Ta. There's one like very neutral palette that I've been keeping an eye on. So I'm not sure yet which one I want to bring into my collection. There are so many, and I'm not going to make a decision until I hit pan on the shade Bare Minimum. I love that. I love hitting pan on an eyeshadow and then bringing in a palette. It allows me to use eyeshadow in my collection before bringing in new pans, you know what I mean? And it actually allows me to use my collection and get a feel for what I'm missing, what I love, what I don't like, what I'm looking for, so that when I go to buy a palette, it's a good decision. And this was my newest palette, and it was definitely a great decision, and this is not going anywhere anytime soon. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below your favorite palette or a palette that you absolutely love. Do you have any of these? Did you enjoy any of these? I would be very interested in knowing. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one very soon. Bye.